How much money would you spend to transform your mortal flesh into that of a vampire? $15? $172.25? $260? This one costs $400, but it turns you into a shadow demon, which is a lower creature rating than a vampire lord. What gives? Let's get out of my bathroom and into some answers. Look, I've always found the Etsy wizarding world to be just a little bit on the silly side. I'm not trying to be mean. If magic is something that you're into, I love me a little bit of witchcraft, but something about spending $400 on a shadow demon transformation spell with a crappy AI thumbnail, that just seems odd to me. However, more importantly, as a forever dungeon master, I have some serious concerns about the Etsy witchcraft economy and magic system. Any system that is not balanced well is inherently prone to players taking advantage of it, and something about this Etsy magic system is just screaming poor world building to me. So we are here to find out a couple things. How unreasonable are the prices on these Etsy spells compared to what you should be paying for them? What exactly are the spells that are being advertised according to the D&D 5e Player's Handbook? And what exactly is up with the people casting these spells? Based on what spells they are casting, I want to find out what class they are using to manifest these powers, and just how powerful they are based on the spells that they're able to produce. It has fallen to me entirely by my own choice and being forced by nobody to investigate these matters and give you some answers. So let's put on our investigation caps and get to the bottom of this. As funny as I think it would be to sit down and go through every single Etsy spell listing, I do think that might take up just a little bit too much time for this video. So instead, I've categorized the most common spells I see listed on Etsy, and we're going to go through these categories to determine what arcane abilities we might be looking at. Now, by far, the most common spell I see on Etsy is some variation of wealth spell that makes you wealthy. The process for these spells is pretty simple. Step 1, you send the Etsy sorcerer $30. Step 2, Step 3, profit. I have scoured the Player's Handbook in depth, the Player's Handbook being the absolute conclusive list of every spell that ever could be cast, obviously. And I was unable to locate any magic that makes it rain golden coins from the heavens to give wealth to a target. Except for a wish spell, which A, what a colossal waste of a wish spell, and B, we're gonna get into the wish spell, don't worry. However, none of these Etsy spell listings are actually directly claiming to manifest Dala into your hands. I know that sounds silly, but some of the claims that we are going to get into later are very bold. What they are claiming instead is to increase your luck and good fortunes to come into more money through natural means. Basically, the Etsy mage is leaning into your boss's ear and whispering, "Hey, this guy's pretty cool, you should give him a raise." So with that in mind, these wealth spells aren't really about wealth at all. They're about increasing your luck and odds. I don't mean to disparage our Etsy arcanists here, but I don't think that bestowing someone with the lucky feat is something that is in their power. To be honest, I wish that the lucky feat was within nobody's power because that feat is silly and goofy. But I do think that our two best matches for these wealth spells are either Bless or Enhance Ability. Enhance Ability seems more targeted. You enhance someone's charisma, they go talk to their boss and they get a raise because they're more charismatic. Bless seems more like a general life upgrade, where they're just gonna be 1d4 luckier on everything they do, which will lead them to more wealth. Oh my god, what's this? The wealth spell that I bought on Etsy for $24.99 must be working. It's a sponsorship. Just kidding, this video doesn't have a sponsor because I'm bad at answering my business emails. But I want to take one moment to pretend that I am the sponsor of my own video. I do see a lot of comments from you guys asking where I get my shirts for, which I don't blame you when I'm bringing heat like the official Nathan's Affair shirt, or the Mind Goblin t-shirt, or this new one I'm just dropping with my cat on it. I haven't gotten it delivered yet, so I really hope I manage to Photoshop the shirt onto me right now. I'm gonna put a link in the description of this video to my merch store, and if you want a Mind Goblin These Nuts t-shirt, you know, go check it out, have fun with that. Sorry, I feel kind of gross promoting my own stuff, but when I'm out here repping this much drip, it's my moral obligation. Okay, back to the Etsy Arcana investigation. Y'all, I lost my wizard hat. How does that happen? It's a massive purple hat. Our next group of spells up on the docket is the instantly make someone love you forever instantly spell, which I do just want to state is a little bit morally dubious. Using a magic spell to make someone love you who wouldn't have loved you otherwise is maybe not the best thing you could spend $24.99 on Etsy on. The common principle of all of these love spells on Etsy is that you pick a person, you send the Etsy specialist one Andrew Jackson, and then they fall in love with you instantly and forever. They being the person you picked, not the Etsy wizard. Now for this one, when I cracked open my player's handbook, I actually found what I believe is the exact spell that these Etsy wizards are casting. It's Antipathy Sympathy. Specifically the sympathy part. It would be kind of funny if they picked your target person and made them hate you forever. So the Etsy Arcanist is casting the spell, picking you as the person the subject is sympathetic towards, and whenever they come within 120 feet of you, they are charmed by you. That seems like the most clear-cut box you could possibly put a love spell into. Granted, Antipathy Sympathy only lasts for 10 days, but I feel like with how much TikTok is routing our attention spans, that might just be the direction that a lot of modern love is going in. This is not one of the spell categories. I just really thought that this Banish Your Boss spell was really funny because it's very clearly a banishment spell, and the idea of using banishment on your boss just makes me giggle. Your boss is just standing there like, so the Q3 percentages were down by 71%, and that's unacceptable with this workplace culture, so I'm gonna need everybody to sign up for 6 overtime shifts. And then he's just gone. That's just funny. I just love that. Anyways. I'm caught in my microphone wire. Oh, shit. Let's get into something less morally dubious, perhaps. Tarot readings are cool. We love those. I'll always spend $20 to get my tarot read at the Ren Fair. I know that this video has been a little bit of me poking fun at Etsy magic so far, but I do just want to take a small second to be respectful of witchcraft in general here. Please do not cast 1,000 hexes upon me for making this video. I am hanging on by a thread. I cannot afford any more hexes to be put upon me. Tarot readings on Etsy seem like the most straightforward and honest of all of the spells that are offered here. You send the Etsy magician some amount of money, they send you a video of them reading your tarot cards, everyone knows exactly what is happening, everything is above board. Not like them taking $1,800 of you for, pure ultimate black magic custom spell for any purpose. As far as what D&D spell we're looking at here, I feel like Commune is the best answer. They're asking the cards a couple of vague questions, but they're not getting any specific answers, which is, from what I understand, more or less what a tarot reading is. However, I do want to state that I am grossly uninformed about tarot cards. I'm actually grossly uninformed about all magic in general. I have absolutely no qualifications to make this video besides owning a player's handbook. Wonderful. Moving on. Now, I did mention being afraid that the Etsy Arcanists might end up cursing me for making this video. Given my striking good looks and popularity, this next spell category is obviously what they would target me with. The Impotence Spells. Yeah, there are a lot of posts out there that offer to exchange $22 for making your adversary's dry spaghetti noodle into more of a wet spaghetti noodle. Quick side note, what is this review on one of the Impotence Spells? Working will see results soon? Are you checking? Did you hex your partner and now every night you're going down there just to check if the impotence spell has worked? Sorry, I'm getting sidetracked. This is a very serious investigation. I have scoured the player's handbook for many hours, and unfortunately I was unable to locate any spells that specifically target your opponent's magic wand. Honestly, Wizards of the Coast is kind of slacking on this one. Wizards of the Coast hire me to design more spells. I will do an amazing job. However, like the wealth spells before this, I feel like you could see the usage of your metaphorical magic wand as a skill check of sorts. So with that in mind, I think that the impotence spells are more than likely a bestow curse spell that is specifically targeting the charisma stat. Charisma being the stat that you roll for when you attempt to activate your magic wand. Is charisma what you guys use for your magic wand rolls in your D&D sessions? I feel like I've heard some people prefer constitution for that because it's more of like a body health thing. If you have an opinion on this, please go and get into a massive argument in the comments over which stat you use to reflect bedroom wizardry. Thank you. Also, it does stand out to me that most of these impotence spells are made to specifically target adulterers and cheaters. If this video gets 10,000 likes, I will commission an Etsy impotence spell upon Nathan. Go leave a like, do your part. I'll post proof on Twitter or something. I don't know. Really quick, I did just want to talk about this literal wish spell that I found on Etsy. If you are an Etsy mage casting the literal most powerful spell a mortal can comprehend for $3 and change, maybe know your worth a little bit. Obviously, we know what spell they're casting here because they named it by name, but something tells me that casting it for $3 is not profitable. But there is something darker about this spell listing, something much more concerning to a detective like me. It says that 5 people have bought this spell within the last 24 hours. Every time you cast the wish spell, it has a 33% chance of never being able to be cast by that mortal again, in addition to it using a 9th circle spell slot. So I'm concerned that this Etsy Arcanist might have a little bit of trouble fulfilling these orders. But that leads me to 2 only logical explanations for this order volume. 1, we are dealing with an entire cabal of wizards so powerful that they can pump out wish spells like it's literal candy. A group of wizards that powerful would be a serious threat to any civilization that has ever or will ever exist. Or 2, this is not a mortal wizard, this is a literal god selling wish spells on Etsy for $3. Either way, I'm a little bit concerned about the power scaling going on with this listing. Anyways, we've got 2 more Dude, where's my wizard hat? We have got 2 more spell categories to cover before we get into the next stage of our investigation. The first of these is any variation of summon crazy overpowered extraplanar being to assist you in your normal life. For the low fee of some of your mortal currency, you can summon to your aid a list including but not limited to succubi, incubi, vampires, werewolves, Anubis sanguine vampire god spirit servitors, literally Satan, and even 20,000 demons. Can I just say that this one is 20,000 demons for $325? This is literally 1.6 cents per demon. This has to be one of the greatest deals that has ever existed in our capitalist hellscape. Okay, quick minigame time. You get $600, you can buy any of these listings, as many as you can for the $600. Whatever you buy defends you, whatever you don't buy attacks you. What of these listings are you gonna purchase? Don't forget to leave your answer in the comments. I do think that all of these Etsy listings are objectively very clear examples of planar binding. Although identifying this as planar binding does create a worry that is starting to arise in me as I look through all of these spells. Planar binding requires you to expend a gemstone worth 1,000 gold pieces to cast it every single time. And I don't want to hear the whole, if you have your arcane focused, you don't need the material components. That only applies to material components that aren't expended. If you expend the gemstone, you still need it in addition to your staff. But look, we're going to get into the economics in the next section of this video. My worry is, what is a gold piece when compared to $1, and how are these Etsy wizards profiting when they are spending 1,000 gold every time they cast one of these binding spells? We're gonna get to that soon though. First, let's just go ahead and settle our last spell category. The one I mentioned in the intro of this video, the transform yourself into some sort of crazy monster spells. Now, while we all have the power to transform ourselves into monsters by becoming politicians in America, these spells offer to let us make that transformation without having to gain the popular vote. Looking through the Etsy listings, we have opportunities to turn ourselves into vampires, werewolves, shadow demons, a vampire again, even though this one looks kind of like a White Walker from Game of Thrones, or even someone who is slightly taller. This height one is a crazy spell listing to me because it offers a full refund if you don't see results. I just don't think you're gonna see those results, so are they honoring that refund policy? Somebody call up Charlie, because this might be exactly what he needs. Alright, I've already said that I'm starting to get concerned about the Etsy magicians, but this is where it's starting to get to a critical mass for me. I know that we already said they're casting the wish spell. I do have my doubts about the validity of that specific listing, but now I'm being faced with the reality of this situation being that these transformation spells can only be explained by true polymorph. Planar binding and planar ally don't make somebody into a demon, they just summon a demon to like do your dishes for you and stuff. Create Undead isn't going to turn someone into a vampire, it just creates a ghoul to do your dishes and stuff. As far as I know, according to the D&D rules, the only way to become a vampire is to get bit, and I don't see any of these Etsy Arcanists offering to fly out and bite you. So the only option from our list of spells that fits this at all is True Polymorph, a ninth circle spell. So now we've gone through all of the categories of spells that I've found listed on Etsy. But before we start getting into the power scaling and classes of these wizards, I need to take a moment to talk about the economic ramifications of shilling high-level magic for $35 on Etsy.com. Welcome to Wizarding Econ 101. Now, $400 for a spell that summons a literal vampire to your service seems a little steep, doesn't it? And on the flip side, casting a wish spell for $3 and change seems wildly inexpensive and underpriced. But when we get into the logistics of what these arcanists are offering, there are some deeply disturbing things from an economic standpoint. This could be hurting shareholder value, which is more important than any atrocity a wizard could commit. To start, what we need to do is establish a comparison from one gold piece to $1 US. I'm sorry, foreigners, we're using freedom units today, and you can't stop me. I just want to state that I'm deeply embarrassed by the actions of my country, and I'm only doing the whole haha freedom unit thing as a meme. Thank you. So, to start our calculations, we need to figure out what one gold piece will get you. According to the player's handbook, a gold piece can get you such wonderful items as a set of cook's utensils, a single bedroll, 20 arrows, or a 33.3 repeating mile carriage ride within the confines of a city. I made a chart. Now it falls to me to put these in my online shopping cart and see what these 4 items would cost me in real US dollars. Now, Walmart didn't just sell a bundle called Cook's Utensils, but I got a set of knives and a set of cooking pots, which felt equitable, and that was $101. This bedroll cost $110. The 20 arrows were almost exactly $100. Now, I know the listing says that they aren't $100, but this was for 12 arrows, and it actually took me like 20 minutes to remember how to convert the cost of 12 arrows into the cost of 20 arrows. I haven't taken a math class in like 7 years, and I am embarrassed as to how hard that was for me to do. And this 33-mile Uber ride through Denver would cost about $93.37. Yes, I did pick the luxury Uber ride, but if you're an adventuring party and you're not buying the deluxe carriage, what is the point of even adventuring? So with all of these comparisons, I am feeling fairly comfortable in saying that one gold piece is roughly equal to $100, which makes $1 pretty much equal to one copper piece, which actually makes my brain very happy. It's the little things in life because I'm not getting a lot of big wins anymore. However, where these numbers start to not feel wonderful is when it comes to our Etsy spells. That's right, did you remember that's what we're doing? Because I kind of didn't. I got so involved in doing this math that I kind of forgot what the video I was actually doing this all for was. Taking our new gold comparisons and comparing them to the Etsy wizarding world is going to reveal some very extreme inconsistencies. To start with, we do have the wish spell being cost for 3 copper. And I know some of you might be saying, come on, Tater, they're not actually casting the wish spell, that should be obvious. To which I will say 2 things. First of all, then they are engaging in false advertising and we should be reporting them to the proper officials. And I will tolerate you offering to summon me a succubus on Etsy, but I will not tolerate false advertising. But second of all, fine, okay, let's look at some other examples. Now, the wonderful thing about the player's handbook is that it has this super handy dandy chart that actually defines exactly how much an adventuring party would need to spend for spell casting of different levels and where those spell casting rituals can be purchased. Now, it does specify if you need to be in a village, a town, or a city, but let's for a moment assume that if Etsy were a city, it would be a large, bustling metropolis full of powerful mages that could cast all of these spells. I'm making another chart, give me a second. These are all of our spells that we determined that these Etsy mages were slinging around. And as a brief reminder, the cheapest spell I found cost about $3.60 for a wish spell, and the most expensive spell I found was about $1,800 for the Ultimate Evil spell. And in our second column, I have written the gold pieces that each of these spells should cost according to the player's handbook. Now we are going to go through and fill in the dollar amount that these gold piece amounts should equate to. In other words, according to the player's handbook, how much should these spells be costing in real US currency? For our Bless spell, which would cost 50 gold pieces, we have $5,000. Uh-oh. For our Bestow Cursed spell of 300 gold, we have $30,000. $30,000 for the Impotence spells that we've seen on Etsy. For Commune, our tarot card readings, we have $200,000. Planar Binding is in the same category of our little player's handbook chart, but it also has that gemstone that costs 1,000 gold every time you cast it. That 1,000 gold gemstone is an additional $100,000, so summoning that succubi is going to be $300,000. Antipathy Sympathy is an 8th circle spell, so those harmless love charms are actually going to cost you $2 million. And finally, our Wish spell, which was $3, and our True Polymorph spells, anything that is transforming you into a werewolf or vampire, those should be costing about 100,000 gold pieces, which is going to translate to 10 million American dollars. But wait, I hear you cry from behind your computer screen while you watch a man rant about Etsy spells while wearing a wizard hat for probably 20 minutes by this point. What if these Etsy mages aren't actually high-level wizards? What if they are charisma-based rogues and this is all a con operation? These spells aren't being cast in earnest, which is why they're being offered at such steep discounts. First of all, how dare you question the integrity of these mages? These casters have maybe studied for decades if we determine that they are wizards, and they will not have their abilities questioned by somebody who is watching a man in a wizard hat from Spirit Halloween rant in front of a whiteboard. Second of all, let me make this video. You and I both know that this video is completely useless. Let me have this. But third of all, you raise an excellent point, and as a man in a very official detective cap, I should investigate if these spell claims are legitimate and valid. So let's look at some evidence pertaining to these spells. And where better to find objective and unbiased testimonies of the strength of these wizards than the reviews that have been left on these Etsy spells? I am pleased to report that after a thorough investigation of the reviews being left on these Etsy Arcana shops, they do, in an overwhelming majority, seem to indicate that people are being transformed into vampires for 1/1000th of the cost that it should actually cost. Take, for example, this trustworthy review. Demonic Divine Ascension, demonic powers now I am. Thank you. Or this satisfied customer. I can feel it working already. Powerful. Or how about this one? I definitely ascended with all 3 transformations. Thank you so much for everything. I really appreciate it. This one even has a smiley face included with it. Would you leave a smiley face on a demonic ascension spell if you didn't actually ascend to demonhood? And finally, we have this completely authentic review left by somebody so passionate they left the exact same review on 2 different spells. Clearly a real human who was simply overjoyed by the results of their force them to fall in love with you extreme love spell love magic witchcraft. As an objective man of science who is, again, currently wearing his detective cap, I have no choice but to conclude that these Etsy warlocks are honestly casting all of these magical abilities in earnest, and doing them at such discounts as, I did the math, the wish spell is being cost at 3.6 times 10 to the negative 5th power percent of what their true price should be. That's a very small number. This realization, based on nothing but cold, hard, unfeeling fact, has left me to draw a few very unsettling conclusions. This amount of magic being cast so far below the market price undoubtedly will have disastrous implications on the wizarding economy. I called up a smart friend and asked them, hey, what would the impact be of somebody flooding the market with goods being sold at 3.6 times 10 to the negative 5th percent of their market value? The smart person informed me that it would result in bad stuff for the economy. But my second conclusion that I am forced to draw is that Etsy is infested by mages so powerful that they can throw around these spells on a whim and the profit margins don't even matter to them. I hesitate to suggest it, but seeing as so many of these spell arts are AI generated, is it possible that AI has learned to understand the weave of magic? And now, instead of ordering an Etsy spell and getting an honest, hard-working wizard to sit down and perform your ritual, artificial intelligence just churns out slop that is the equivalent of that spell. We're seeing this with music and YouTube videos and books where the market is suddenly being flooded with AI-generated works that drown out the honest creators. Is it possible that sorcerers are suffering the same fate? And if this is artificial intelligence casting these spells, is it safe? Does artificial intelligence know what steps are needed to be taken to ensure the stability of a magic spell? Look, I'm not a level 17 wizard. I'm not going to lie to you about that. But I would guess that if you cast a wish spell incorrectly, there might be some bad consequences for our world. And if AI is generating 5 wish spells every 24 hours, sooner or later, we are going to have a cataclysm. But regardless of if these spells are being generated and cast by AI, or if it is truly a cabal of level 20 wizards throwing spells around on a whim just to sabotage the wizarding economy and drive hard-working local wizards out of business, I think that we have stumbled across a font of arcane power that is beyond our comprehension. This amount of raw, crackling power in the Arcane Weave would be a threat to any civilization that ever has existed or ever will exist. If these Etsy mages chose, they could bring about the fall of the entire existence of humanity. And according to this thorough investigation so far, I have no choice but to accept that as absolute fact. It has now become our duty to understand what classes these casters are and what exact power level they must be at so that we can properly prepare for such a threat. This video has gotten so unhinged from where I intentionally intended to take it when I started scripting this. This is my job. Like, genuinely, what am I doing? Okay, let's bring this video around to the question that was in the title of the video. What classes are these Etsy mages using to manifest all of the powers that they are marketing online? We have our general spell list, now we just need to figure out what class that spell list would fit into, which is actually not as neat as I was hoping it was going to end up being for this video. It is so close to working out perfectly, and it just doesn't. So this is our spell list, and why I think that Radiant Soul Sorcerer is literally a whisker from being the exact class that these Etsy mages are using. The tricky thing with fitting all of this together is that our lower end spells are coming from the Cleric spell list, while our 2 peak spells, our True Polymorph and Wish, are coming from the Sorcerer spells. Obviously, all of these are on different spell lists as well, but these are the 2 that I could mesh together the easiest. Because Radiant Soul Sorcerer gets to pick from both spell lists, so this is how we can weave all of these spells together to create our optimized Etsy Sorcerer. This is almost a perfect solution if not for this stupid spell. To be honest, I had never even heard of Antipathy Sympathy before I started making this video. Never seen a player cast it, never used it on one of my characters, never heard of anybody talking about it. I don't even think it was in older editions of Dungeons and Dragons. If you asked me before I started researching for this video, I would have told you that it didn't exist. And it's like the worst case scenario because it fits the trope of a love spell so perfectly, but it is specifically not on the Sorcerer spell list. It is one of the few spells that wizards have access to, but sorcerers do not. Which also makes very little sense to me because it is a charm spell, which feels more charisma weighted, which is the sorcerer class's wheelhouse. I don't know exactly what the best way to reconcile all of this is. I am dangerously close to beginning to believe that the Etsy sorcerers might not be adhering to strict Dungeons and Dragons 5e rule sets. I guess if our casters are able to cast 5 wish spells every 24 hours, they could just be using the wish spells to cast the love charms, and that would be another way to explain them. But that feels like even more of a stretch than just using the 5 wish spells an hour to fulfill the wish orders. And it also just seems like a cheap cop-out answer, because if I say, oh, well this spell is actually them just casting wish, why can't I say that with every spell they're offering and just say it's any class that can cast wish? My only other idea for the love spell that isn't Antipathy Sympathy is maybe a suggestion spell. I could deny the existence of Antipathy Sympathy, tear the page out of my player's handbook, and pretend that I never saw it, and instead assume that our casters are using a suggestion spell to suggest to the love spell target that they love the purchaser. I know that the text of the suggestion spell technically says that you have to speak your suggestion to the target, but I've kind of quietly been ignoring casting ranges for all of the Etsy spells this entire time because it would completely undermine the core concept of this video. So yeah, I think that in order to make this fit into a D&D class, we do have to say that the love charms are not Antipathy Sympathy, they are Suggestion, which is on our Sorcerer spell list. And because we have finally fit everything into the Sorcerer and the Cleric spell list, we can officially conclude that these Etsy mages are Etsy sorcerers of a Radiant Soul specialization. And it only took just a little bit of mental gymnastics. and ignoring the potential collapse of the wizarding economy due to AI slop spells overrunning all of your local mages. This is your reminder that if you're going to buy spells, buy them from a local wizard. Support local wizardry. Don't go to the big corporations of magic because they are all using AI slop, it appears. And stepping back from how absurd this whole video has gotten for a moment, a Radiant Soul Sorcerer does seem like a logical explanation for what an Etsy witch might be. It's magic you're born with, but with a little bit of cosmic influence, maybe a little bit of god powers, maybe a little bit of star signs. It does seem like something that would fit into your classic modern witchy aesthetic. It seems fitting for a witch, and I think that at the end of all of this, I'm happy with that. Hey, if you're still watching on this one, I really appreciate you. I have other slightly more coherent video concept ideas in the work, and this one I just enjoyed yapping for a while. Don't forget, merch link down in the description if you want an official Nathan's Affair t-shirt or a Mind Goblin These Nuts t-shirt. I really appreciate any and all support that you wonderful folks give me. Alright, that has been quite enough of this video. I will see you all in the next one.